y'all, and welcome to Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. I'm your host, Ceci Diaz, and first and foremost, I want to thank each and every one of you for supporting me on this Benevolence podcast. I pray that as you tune in every week, you are empowered, blessed, and encouraged to be the best version of yourself. You are tuning into episode 8, Cycles. On this episode of Benevolence, I have an amazing person joining me at the table today. This girl has been on the Benevolence podcast before with her husband, but now I have her again to share her story with all of us. She is a youth pastor of our local church. She is a wife and an influential role model to many, including myself. So without further ado, I have Stephanie Marcelin joining me at the table today. Hey, girl.
Hi, Ceci. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I want to thank you for being willing to come to, again, on Benevolence. I wanted to invite you to the table because I've been hearing little bits and pieces of your story, like here and there, and I never got the full, the full-on story. Yeah. And I've also been dealing with a couple things. I've encountered some people throughout my life that have been going through some very hard times. And I noticed that they're very similar to the bits and pieces that I've heard of your story. So I figured that I'd have you here, join me at the table again, so that you can give us your story so that I can use this episode and you can, it's through your story that we can evangelize to the people that I've come across in the past couple weeks. I wanted to give you an opportunity to tell your story and through a different outlet because you've said your story in church. Yeah. So now it's like you're telling your story to our community. You're telling it to the world. I don't know more, I don't really know who listens in, who tunes in, but I know that from the statistics that I see, I have people from all over the country listening in. That's and crazy. Then I've even seen some people from Europe. That's and I don't know. I know it's kind of crazy. I don't know who they are. I don't know, but
whoever you are, we thank you for listening.
Thank you from Europe, from the other states. Awesome. But I know that your story is going to impact many, many people. It's going to go beyond the four walls. So that's why I wanted you to come again. So, this episode is all about you. Okay. And we've had episodes before where I've had, certain people come and it's just them. I'm just here to facilitate the conversation. Yeah. Okay. So without further ado, let's get started. Like I said, the floor is yours. I'll be here to facilitate some things every now and then. Yeah. But go ahead and tell our listeners and me your story.
Thank you so much, Ceci. I really appreciate that.
No problem.
A little bit about me, just who I am, in today. I am married, been married. This is my third year in marriage. Happily married to my best friend, June Marcelin. I serve at my local church as a youth pastor. Also, we also serve with the young adults ministry there. I am bivocational as well, so I work pharmacy operations at a community oncology center here in Florida.
Wow.
So
basically, you have a lot of hats.
I do have a lot of hats. Yes, wife, friend, sister, daughter, all that kind of stuff. But where I am today, I was never supposed to get here. Every day I battle, this is not for me because of what I've gone through.
Wow.
Or what I haven't, learned or been to school for or different things like that. And so whoever's out there that, feels that they don't belong whatever door has opened in your life, just know that you're there for a purpose and for a reason.
Yes.
And maybe you don't feel qualified, but someone else thinks that you're qualified for that. And it's in that season of preparation that I feel like I'm at right now, to be honest. And so a little bit about my story. I was born in Miami, 305.
Woo-hoo.
Yes, I know. And so I am the oldest of 3 girls. mom and dad are married and, have been married, and I've been blessed to have them both at home. I was raised in church. I was dedicated when I was in my mom's womb. You know what I mean? Like, I knew church inside and out. My parents would be at church every single day that the doors were open.
Wow.
And they served. You know what I mean? They served in their community. They were involved in everything. They wanted us to love church. My parents would do daily devotionals with us growing up. Like, we would hear the word all the time.
Yeah.
Like, my dad was our preacher. You know what I mean? Like, my dad would tell us the Bible stories and, share his testimony with us and, all that kind of stuff. So I grew up, like, in the gospel, hearing about Jesus and having an encounter with him. I got baptized, with the Holy Spirit at the age of 8. You know what I mean? Like, there was in my living room, like,
wow.
it was that, we knew the word and everything like that. But there was something that happened when I moved from Miami to Tulsa, Oklahoma. Shout out 918. But yeah, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, or we moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma from Miami. So first of all, culture shock. Like, you're talking about boonies, you're talking about rednecks, you're talking about like trucks and, camel print, what I mean?
Yeah.
It was so different than Miami. If you're from Miami, the culture is very vibrant, Latin, Spanish, and everything like that. So moving at the age of 10, it was a culture shock. I had to go into a school where I was the minority. In Miami, you're the majority, if anything.
Exactly.
So I was automatically like, I felt kind of marginalized because of that. Because yes, I am a light complexion, but I'm Hispanic. And I speak Spanish, and to some people I have an accent, and because I wasn't white, I didn't really fit in with them. And so I automatically started feeling that distance, and I was like, what in the world are we doing here? Dad got a job, so we had to move and all that kind of stuff. But I started feeling just out of place. And it was just us in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, there was no one else. We didn't have family, we didn't have cousins and aunts and everything, and it was just me and my sisters. And I was the oldest. Yeah. I mean, my sisters were younger than I was. So, mom had to work, dad had to work, and life just started, there in a new place and everything like that. Because of the culture that was where I was growing up, again, I felt so marginalized. I felt like I just couldn't fit in. And fast forward to 7th grade was when really things started kind of taking a turn. I started just having really like just heavy feelings, like, and at the time I couldn't really like I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I always felt so sad, or like, all my thoughts were just so dark and whatever. And I remember just like, it was like a bad day at school, and my mom and dad had to work. They worked just to sustain us, and they were business owners as well. So that would require like a lot of hours outside of the home. Yeah. And I was just at home with my sisters, and I was like, you know what? This is just too much for me, and I just can't. And I went to the kitchen, and I grabbed a knife, and then I locked myself in the bathroom.
Oh my God.
And I was like, I just can't. Like, I can't with the pressures. Like, I can't. Like, this is... I don't know what, at the age of, like, 12, that I was like, I'm so done. I'm just done with life. My sister, Elizabeth, I guess saw me do something. And she starts knocking on the door. And she's like, Steph, I don't know what's going on, but I'm here for you. She's like 4 years younger than me.
Wow.
And she was telling me that I wasn't alone in whatever I was going through. Wow. And I was like, Liz, like, don't worry. Just leave me alone. I really want to be alone. And I was just like, in this crisis at that moment, she slips a note under the door. And she's just like, Stephanie, I love you.
Oh, my God.
Please don't leave me. Like, I'm here for you.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, I'm here. And I'm just crying and sobbing, and she hugs me, and she's like, I'm here, like, don't worry, I don't know what's going on, but whatever. And my parents ended up finding out.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, Steph, like, what's going on? You know, whatever. Do we need to get you help? Like, what's going on? I was like, no, I'm fine. I just had a tough day, whatever. But those emotions were never really addressed.
Yeah.
And it was like, be careful because your sisters are watching.
Wow.
And so at that moment, I was like, I just need to, like, hold it all together all the time.
Wow.
I can't show weakness. You know, I'm the oldest of the three, three of us. And I'm just like, I got to have it together. I have to be here. You know what I mean? You know, for mom and dad, I have to show them that I'm responsible, you know, that I can do it. And I started adding all of these pressures into my life. You know what I mean?
Instead of, like, getting it addressed and, you know, getting help, and it was like, it didn't really resolve itself at the end of the day. It was just actually more pressure.
Yes.
Because you had to set an example for your sisters.
Exactly.
Wow. That's crazy.
And so, yeah. So, you know, now I'm like in 8th grade, and, you know, you start getting attracted to guys, and you're like, oh, you know, who's this and who's that? And I was going to a public school at that time. And, because again, the school system culture was just like, you're Hispanic, you're white, you're a jock, you're black, this and that. There was a clash between African Americans and Latinos.
Wow.
So I would literally be like bullied at walking in the middle of the hallways. Like, I would have people just say things to me, you know, and just like girls try to fight me. I'm just like, yo, like. And I was a little snarky, I'm not gonna lie. You know what I mean? I may have, like, irked a couple people.
Yeah.
And whatever. But it was just that type of environment. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I just need to be accepted somewhere so that nobody comes here and, like, kicks my butt. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Without protection, quote unquote.
Yeah.
So I was just accepted by, you know what I mean, the Latinos, you know what I mean? They're in Oklahoma, predominantly they're Mexican. So I just accepted their culture. I was like, this is what I want to be. This is who I want to be around. Like, you know, just accept me, have my back. Like, and we would say to each other in the hallways, like, yo, this girl's trying to find me. Like, you better jump in. Like, you know, I got your back.
Oh
like,
that
type of environment. And, you know, I got into a couple of fights, and they were there, and whatever. So then it kind of started making a turn, because we were, since I was one of the younger ones within the group, I saw that, you know, there was like cliques and, you know, forming, and I was naive. And so, you know, my understanding now is like, you know, there were gangs, and you would have to be, you know, they fight you, or you fight to get in, and you do all of this and that. And so I kind of followed that.
Wow.
You know, and I was involved in it. We would rep, you know, we had our signs, like, we had all of that.
So did you, like, the whole initiation process, you had to go through that?
I wouldn't say the whole initiation process, because I was younger.
Okay.
So what I saw them do to other people, I didn't have to do, but I was around them, and I was with them, and I repped it. I remember even doing, like, the stupidest things. Like, I, like, did a self-tattoo.
Oh, my God.
Yes. With, like, ink and a needle, just to have, like, the sign on my hand that I rep this set.
Wow.
Just, like, stupid. I would say no stupid things, but you know what I mean?
This is crazy, because it's like Tulsa, Oklahoma, you know, early 2000s, right?
Yes,
and that's like, really? Like,
yeah.
And
but
then what was happening at home?
The thing is, at home, like, I had to have it all together.
Okay, so you were showing something different.
I was.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, mom and dad, you know, they couldn't see, you know what I mean, what was going on. They saw certain things. I started dressing different.
How were you dressing?
Girl, I had my baggy shirts.
Oh my gosh.
I had my tight pants with the bell bottoms.
Yeah.
I had my Cortezes.
Wow.
I had the lip liner. I need to show you pictures.
You need to show me pictures, because I can't.
I had my gold chains, like the cross, and like my name, and all this other stuff. Like, that was just who I was. The way that I wrote like you would tag on a wall. Like,
yeah.
my teachers would tell me, I can't read this.
Oh
Can you write normal?
That's crazy.
I completely started changing.
So this is like 8th grade.
This was 8th grade. Wow. Yes.
So you're like...
This was 8th grade.
12? 13?
13. Yeah, I was 13 years old.
Yeah. Oh
in
my
8th grade.
gosh.
Absolutely. So that's when things began to take a turn. You know what I mean? Like, and on the inside, it was just like, I just felt, you know, empty. I didn't feel like I fit in. You know what I mean? I would still go to church because you have to go to church. Like, you know, there's no other way around that, you know, on a Sunday. And I wouldn't fit in.
Wow.
You know, it would be a fight for, you know what I mean? Like, no, you have to wear, you know, church clothes. And it's like, I just want to wear sneakers and jeans, you know?
Okay.
And all this kind of stuff. So I just couldn't fit in. And, you know, it was like, what's going on? Like, you know, who are you? Like, what are all these things that are going on in your life? And I just didn't feel safe enough to tell anyone that I just felt alone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That I felt marginalized, that I was being bullied, you know what I mean, at school. And all of those, you know, desires of love and acceptance that just weren't there by my peers. Because I'm just going to say that. Because mom and dad, like, loved me, like, regardless. Yeah. You know what I mean? But by the people who I thought that my validation would come from, you know, because they didn't love me and accept me for who I was. I then started to, like, you know, give my value to other things. Wow. You know, I did the whole bad relationship thing, you know? And the thing is that I was 13 years old dating a 19-year-old guy.
No. Jeez Louise.
To the point that he took advantage of me because of my age. Wow. You know what I mean? And that opened, like, even deeper wounds. Yeah. You know, and I was just like, yo, like, what in the world's going on? You know? And because of those hurts that I was, like, crying out on the inside, is when I started taking things that can begin to numb my pain. You know? And all my other friends were dating older guys, so I thought that this was normal. Yeah. You know? All of them would be like, oh, no, but, you know, he can pick you up from school. You can skip with him. He has a car. You know what I mean? He can buy you food. You know, just little things like that. You know? He can give you that. Oh, he can buy his beer. Like, you know, all these different things. And I'm just like, okay, I guess this is cool. But in my mind, in my heart, I just knew it didn't feel right. Yeah. You know? And then at school, you know, because of just how it was, like, you'd be touched inappropriately. And it was just like, because of like the music, even at that time, it was like a rape culture. So like walking down the hallways, like you would be touched inappropriately and guys would say things to you. And all of those words and all of those actions would then just begin to create this like, this thought and belief, like, am I not worth anything? Yeah. You know, because I can be walking down the hallway and a guy like, you know, grab me inappropriately. Wow. You know, or say things to me. You know, and I was just like, what in the world is this? And so I didn't have anyone to like ask. I didn't have anyone to, you know, to rely on to give me sound counsel or advice or whatever. So I just kept bottling this stuff up because I had to have it all together. Yeah. Wow. And so then because of that was when I started using, you know, pills and, you know, I started smoking weed with them and I started skipping school and we would go and have little house parties and we would drink together and then I would just come back at school and put a whole bunch of spray on so no, my parents don't smell that I smoke weed and cigarettes and, you know, all of that stuff. And that just kind of became the cycle of my life at the age of, 13, 14 years old. Wow.
And it carried on till high school?
Yeah. So that 8th grade year, my parents were like, there is something up with you and I don't know what it is, so we're going to stick you in a private school. Wow. I remember going into the private school, walking in to like sign up. Oh my gosh. And I looked at my dad and I was like, I know what you're trying to do, but let me assure you that I will get out of this school one way or another. Like, I was fearless, but not like the good fearless. Like, I just didn't care about like what happened. Yeah. Like, I was like, I'll pay the consequences. I don't care what it is. My friends were in and out of juvie. You know what I mean? Like, I saw that. So for me, it was like, whatever. Like, you know. And so I remember telling my dad that to his face. He was like, whatever, Stephanie. We're going to put you in this school, whatever. So come 9th grade, I'm in this new school. Now I have to wear uniforms. Yes. Like, I have to, you know.
Was it like strict. Christian?
It was Christian.
Oh, okay.
I had chapel and I had all these things. And I'm like, what in the world is this? Like, this is not for me. I remember sitting in chapel, like, in the back. I was like, I don't care about this. Like, my parents are horrible. Like, they don't care about me. They don't love me or whatever. And I was like, yo, I just need to get out of this. So in every school, you find people.
Yes. For sure. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter where it's at. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
But again, these are the people that accepted me for who I was. And so again, I kind of just, you know, went towards the people who, you know, didn't want to be there either. You know, had trouble at home with their parents, you know?
Yeah. And
the things at home also became a little crazy because I was just like, you're going to put me in here and put me here against my will. Like, I'm going to, like, you know, rebel and just like fight you with everything.
Isn't it crazy how, you know, we decide that? Like,
yes.
Because I remember, like, my story. Like, I remember when I moved from Miami to Orlando, I made that decision.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, and it was like, it was so evil. I made the decision. That's it. I'm rebelling. Forget everyone. Forget everything. And that's like, that's the danger.
It is.
When you make that decision.
It is.
To just back off, like back away from everything.
Absolutely.
That's where it gets very dangerous.
It is. It is. And that's exactly where I was at.
Wow.
I was like, I'm like, that's what you want to do? Okay, come on. Let's go. You know? And I got involved with the wrong friends again. I met another girl that she was there, you know, because her parents weren't even Christian. And she had other influences and she was dating, you know, not the best people either. And so I remember even with her, like, we started skipping class and then we went to like a crack house.
Oh my God.
And things were happening there and I saw things and I was like, yo, like, this is too much, but whatever. Like, you know, I'm really trying to get out of this. So she started handing me, you know, prescription pills. And I was like, oh, I took this from my dad, like, whatever. So I started taking them even more. And so then between like, it was like 3 or 4 of us that we would start getting pills. And then we met like because I was a freshman. So we met like juniors and seniors that knew that we had this. And then we started selling them at school.
Oof. Girl.
And so that cycle kind of began. And then one day, I'm just going to fast forward to like, where it gets there. So one day, one of the girls, or one of my friends. Quote unquote. Her and the other girl get into an argument.
Okay.
She then goes to the principal and rats us all out.
Wow.
Ever since then, I've had trust issues with girls. Like, I just could not trust women. I was like, we've been through all of this. Like, you know, whatever. Anyway, so she rats us out.
But she was one of them as well. She was one of,
but she cleared her name. Like,
wow.
Everything's on them. This is what they try to sell me. And she had it as evidence. You know, it was just whatever.
Yeah, of course.
So we had, you know, other stuff on us too. And they're like, you know, then I ended up hearing like, yo, you don't know what's going on. Like, they're going to call you in. Like, it's done. You act like if you don't know me. Whatever. I was like, oh my God. Because until this point, I had never gotten in trouble for anything of the things that I did. Yeah. You know, like this was the first time, like, I'm caught. Yeah. So I'm like, oh my gosh, what do I do? Like, I'm not as tough as I thought. You know, like freaking out. And so they call me into the principal's office. And the principal's there. And there's a juvenile corrections officer in the office as well. Wow. And she's like, this is what we know. We know you're involved in some, you know, with some part. You know, what did you do? You know, what did you bring? You know, what's going on? I need you to tell us. And she said everything that she knew. And I'm just like, well, that's it. Like,
So
I can't do anything.
Yeah, you just surrendered.
So I told her, and I was like, well, this was my part that I played in it, whatever. She's like, I know you've, sold things, like, who did you sell it to? And they started running through videos, and they're like, we saw this person, but who is that person here? She literally took out the yearbook for me to show her, like, who it was. Like, I cannot get away from this. Like, they had evidence, like, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay. So they're like, okay, well, we're going to call your parents, and the juvenile corrections officer is here, so you might be going to juvie today.
Wow.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, at that moment, I didn't even think, like, my future hold. I just knew how to call my parents. Like, I was, and you're Hispanic, you know what I mean? Like, you're scared of that. Like, you know that you're going to, like, die.
Yeah.
So I call my mom. I can't even get a word out. Like, I just automatically start bawling, and I'm, like, crying, and I'm just like, okay. And the little words that I said was like, Mom, just come to school, like, whatever. So they come. She tells them everything. And I'm just there like, oh my God, Stephanie, you're so toast. Like, you're so done. They're like, well, we have to open up an investigation. We're going to suspend you for 3 days, and, then we'll let you know what happens. So I left with, like, a paper that says suspended for 3 days for distribution of drugs. So I'm like, oh my God.
Jeez Louise. Yes. It's like... It's surreal. Like, I can't. I'm looking at you and I'm like, this is a movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
and to this day, I'm just like, I really like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't. I can't even.
Same with me. I look back at just the stupid things. I'm like, oh my God.
What was I thinking?
What was going on? Like, and then the crazy thing is that we know. Like, Jesus, like, we knew
and we were in church every week.
And we faked the funk, you know what I mean? And it's like, still.
Absolutely.
And then you hear, like, we went to church and we heard the testimonies of how people, God brought them out of certain things, but still you're sitting there and you're just like, whatever, it's just, anyway.
It's because you're just not receptive. Like, you're not open to it, At least for me also, it was like, the church that I went to at that time wasn't so accepting and loving. So, like, even in situations with, like, the youth leaders at the church, that they would see me, I remember, like, one lady, she's like, you have hate written all over your face.
Oh, my gosh. Okay.
And I'm just like, why are you coming at me like that?
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, well, in that case, like, I hate everybody, and I hate you.
You said that?
Yes. Because I was like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, don't try to, and then, I had profetas come and, tell me that you're bound up in sin and all that. You know what I mean? So, like, I was constantly just like, that's not a place for me. Because as soon as I walk in, I'm being judged. I'm being singled out, and I'm, like, 13 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm young. I'm a baby in reality, And so, going back to that moment with the principal, like, my parents leave, and I was like, yo, I'm so toast. And we leave. My parents' reaction was not what I thought at that moment. We got into the car, and they're like, Stephanie, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. But you're in God's hands right now, and they just started praying.
Wow.
Like, it wasn't even, like, that they screamed at me. It wasn't even that they, like, punched me. Like, I deserved all of that. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I was, and I got them. Trust me, I got them.
For sure.
I was, but it just wasn't that. And I was just like, I don't even know what's going on. But I just had so much hurt of just being, like, used when I shouldn't have. And, people violated, and people would say things about me, and all of those things were just a constant cycle in my head that it just, was creating huge wounds that I was just trying to just numb.
Yeah.
I was just trying to numb it. And then after that, it got even worse. Like, my parents were like, I can't even put her in any school. Wow. So I was out of school for a year.
What? Gosh.
So I was the year behind.
Okay.
Because my mom was like, I can't, like, I don't know. If I put her here, she'll go back with her friends. If I put her in this other one, like, she just got kicked out. Like,
every parent thinks private school is
the solution. Yeah.
But
I had just gotten kicked out of, one of the best ones in that town. So I was like, they're like, whatever. Well, you'll stay here with us and whatever. So I did my, I said I was like punished for like a year, for what I did, which, hey, I deserve it, I guess, and then the next year I went back to that school, the public school. And my parents like, Steph, this is another opportunity. Don't mess it up, whatever. But in that year that I was out of school, because I wasn't around those people anymore, I kind of just opened up to, there was a new pastor that came into the church, and she was a female. No, she was a pastor's wife, but she was also a pastor. Like, she was powerful, she preached, and she was a psychologist.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like I was like her quote unquote project, if that would make sense.
Okay.
And so she also helped with the youth. Like, she started leading the youth ministry. And I was like, okay, she's cool. She'll be like, how you doing, Stephanie? And like all this and that. And she wouldn't take my rejection. Like, she wouldn't feed off of that. You know what I mean? But she would like engage in conversation. Like, how you doing? Like, you know what I mean? How's this or how's that? And she started coming around my house. She started spending like hours with me at my house. Like, how are you doing? Just talking to me. Just like a regular person.
Yeah.
And I hadn't had that. I've never had anybody ask me like, yo, what's really going on?
Yeah.
And I kind of just began to open up with her. And I was like, okay, so not everyone is judgmental and, kind of standoffish and critical, and they're, you know what I mean? Like, she was just different. I hadn't really experienced anyone, you know what I mean, in that way. And so, I began to open up with her, and I was telling her like what I had been going through and whatever. And in the most loving way, she just heard me. She just heard what I had to say, and wasn't, bashing me with the Bible or like the Word of God says this or this or no. She just heard me for who I was and what I was going through.
Yeah.
And so I began to like have that, relationship with her, and I was open up to God, and I was like, okay, God, maybe you have something for me, and I don't know, like, I've gone through all this crap, like, like, and just help me, if anything. And that year was when God, like, when I met God.
Okay.
That was when I was 14.
Wow.
And I had that encounter with God, that I knew he was real. Like, he started, waking me up in the middle of the night. You know what I mean? I would feel his presence. Like, I had people speak over my life, like purpose and life and just different things. Like, things started changing. You know what I mean? Like, even things at home got better. Like, I didn't like to clean my room, and that was just me. And I started seeing like my parents like even begin to change that. My mom would use the opportunity that my room was messy to like go into my room and start praying over my room and like fixing my sheets and like declaring God. Like, I saw that. And I'm just like, okay, I guess there's something different. I don't know, whatever. But I still didn't open up so deep to go into the wounds that were really there.
Yeah.
And with any addiction is just something that occupies your time. It is, what is it that is taking away your time from things that matter, and it's that. And so I was like, I didn't do that. I didn't disconnect from what was it that was really, the issue. Because under any addiction is what actually happened. And when you get to the root of it and you make a choice to not go back, that's when things begin to then change. And so, I was caught up in this system again. I didn't allow myself to fully heal. And so I went back.
Well,
so then I got into another relationship, and the guy was older, and the same thing happened, and there was more wounds that were opened. And so then fast forward from Oklahoma, we moved to Texas. I met a counselor there. She fixed up my credits. I was able to do 2 years in one.
Wow.
I graduated with my class.
Wow.
So I did 2 years in like 7 months. Like, it was the craziest, most intense months of my life.
Yeah.
Then after that, my dad got another job and we moved to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
That was in 2010.
Okay.
So then in Orlando's just like, I was in the middle of nowhere in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Like, there was nothing. Orlando's like distraction town. Like, there's everything here. Like, you know, and it's not just the parks, but, you know, you can go out different places to started meeting different people. I got, you know, I went to school, you know, for my degree. And so then I started, and again, it's just meeting with the wrong people. Like, I just always click with them because I just felt that I just was accepted.
Yeah.
And so again, the same thing. And now I'm, you know, 18, 21, and I'm in this cycle of, you know, the party scene. There's, you know, clubs here that I wasn't, you know, that weren't over there. And I just got attracted to this scene, you know, started drinking alcohol and taking pills again and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And the cycle just continued to happen.
Wow. Because
there's always something that fuels your cycle, whether it's hurt that's fueling your cycle, whether it's your fears that are fueling your cycle, like whether it's your anxieties that are fueling your cycle, like there's something that keeps it going.
Yeah.
Cycles are circles, so what keeps the momentum going? And until you figure out what that is, the cycle will continue.
Exactly.
And so I got involved with the wrong guy, and then there was a night that I was driving home from school, and I got hit head on by a drunk driver.
Wow.
And that was February 26, 2013.
Wow.
Statistics of drunk driving accidents, like,
no,
very
fatal.
Little. And it was head on. It was a head on collision.
Oh my God.
That night, Stephanie should have died.
Yeah. Wow.
But I didn't. I walked out with bruises, but not a scratch.
Wow. Incredible.
And I mean, I have some spinal, bulges and different things like that. But in reality, like, my treatment lasted 2 years. Like, that was tough. And during that time, I was reintroduced to painkillers because of the pain that I was in. So it goes back to what I had experienced for years. And that season was the darkest season of my life.
Wow.
Because I was like, I should have died, but I didn't. So why in the world am I here? I would take handful of pills because I did not want to wake up the next morning.
Wow.
But I would wake up the next morning.
Wow.
And I was like, what in the world is it? Why do you have me here? I am in pain. I lost my car. The guy left. On my job. Like, all these different things. Like, I couldn't even finish school that semester. How was I going to finish school if I was, like, taking pills? Like, I couldn't even concentrate. You know,
wow.
I was in physical therapy for, like, 2 years. Like, it was bad. And I was just like, what in the world do you have me here to do? Like, I can't. And so I was like, well, you didn't do it, so let me do it.
Yeah.
And it was 3 times that I was like, I'm done. And the next morning I would still wake up.
That's crazy.
So I was like, I don't know what the heck it is. I don't know what it is that you want, God. Because clearly you're keeping me here for a reason. I'm not grateful because I'm in pain, because I've lost everything that I thought I earned. Like, you know, all these different things, and you're giving me this life that I don't want. Like, what in the world is going on? And so a friend invited me to church. To Calvario. Or Iglesia de Calvario back then.
Yeah.
And she's like, Steph, just come. Like, you need people around you that can, like, you know, motivate you, and, like, we're here for you. We know you're going through all of this stuff. And she invited me to church.
Wow.
And that was 2013. That was 6 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm just like, where I am right now was never where I was supposed to end up. I have friends till this day that I have like on Facebook, Instagram, that are still in the same cycle that I was at 13 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's where I should have been.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, you know, what is it that you have for me? I don't understand. And it made so much sense when I was like, it was because I felt alone, that I had no one, that I was, you know, put to the side, that I wasn't accepted, that I wasn't invited to the table. You know, that these wounds began to open, you know, and people took advantage of my innocence, and, you know, words were spoken over, you know, against me and against my life, and I didn't feel like I had a safe haven anywhere, that I would just go to the wrong people to just try to get value and acceptance. Wow. But the same people that can celebrate you will be the same people that crucify you.
Yes.
They won't be there when you mess up. They won't be there when you fall. They won't be there when you're crying in the middle of the night. Yeah. Because the thoughts are just so loud and the voices are so loud. They won't be there for that. And so in that darkest season of my life, when I was 21, I was like, okay, I don't know what it is that you want with my life. You know, I'll try this, because clearly what I'm doing is not worth it. And I feel like God took me to the end of Stephanie. The end of me, where I had no more solutions, where I had no more excuses, where I had nothing else to give. I had nothing. I had nothing to my name. I had, you know, nothing. And I was like, okay, do something. If you're really there, do something. Because I can't. And I'm done with me. Yeah. And that's when things begin to change. But in that process of changing, I was at the altar every single week. Wow. Like, I was that person that was like, that girl's going through some stuff. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, but I was constantly there because I was like, if things are gonna change, then they have to change now. Yeah. And I'm gonna make that choice to begin to change, because there's power in your choice. Yes, like, absolutely. There's power when you're like, enough is enough. Like, I'm tired of being dragged. I'm tired of being stepped on. I'm tired. I'm tired of the voices in my head being louder than they should be. You know, and letting that control how I feel and how I act and what I do. Like, you know, and all of that. And I was like, I'm done. And I was like, okay, do something. Show me. You know what I mean? Like, you spoke to me when I was 14. And I met you there, and you came to me with how broken I was with, you know, getting kicked out of school and all this kind of stuff. Like, I'm here now, and do something. And little by little, things began to change. It was the longest process that I felt that I was in, because I had to cut relationships and friendships. I had to, you know, I had to cut the addictions that I was in. Those things that will fuel my validation, like, you know, going to the club and a whole bunch of guys saying things to you and you look good and blah, blah, blah. Like, I had to cut all of that. Wow. And know that my validation didn't come from those things. My validation came from just who I was and whose I was.
That's good.
So it was just a whole mind shift. And sometimes that's the biggest battle. It's in our mind. Yep, absolutely. The biggest battles in my mind. And then I started reading books on my mind, because I knew that I was just like messed up here. I was just messed up. I had created negative, you know, channels in my head, and, you know, negative thought patterns and all these different things. And that change is not gonna happen from one day to the other, because it wasn't created from one day to the other. Exactly. So you can't expect change in your life, like, you know, Sunday to Monday. Like, that's not gonna happen. And God can do it. I'm not saying that God can't. Like, God can deliver you from stuff, because I've seen it. My dad's a testimony of it. Like, you know, I've known those stories. I've heard those stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and everything like that. But that wasn't for me. That wasn't my story.
Yeah.
My story was a constant surrender. My story was a constant, like, I'm here. Like, I'm here. Like, I'm done. Like, I have no answers. I need you to do something.
Wow.
And 6 years later, like,
here you are.
Here I am.
Pastor?
The one thing
the one thing that, I don't know, probably never thought that you would be feeling, you know, that
and just like, you know, and you look from the outside, it's like, all I have is my story and what Jesus did in my life. Like,
amen.
That's all I have.
But that's it. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all we need. That's all the people that follow you need. You know what I mean? The people that, your sheep, you know, your youth, that's all they need.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that, like, a lot of us, especially those that serve in church, we feel like we need the degree or we need, you know, the experience. And even with me, I'm like, God, how can you use me? Like, I'm just doing this thing just because, I don't know, you know, I still don't know why I do this. And, you know, and, you know, I'm still denying the call that you have over my life and things like that. But I don't have the credentials. And, you know, I have my story and that's it, you know, and it's true. You know, we feel unqualified, but those are the people that God uses the most. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, and look at you now wearing a bunch of hats under a lot of stress, but good hats.
You know, and it's just that shift of, you know, surrounding yourself with people like, you know, that you look up to, you know, that you admire, that you're like, wow, like, life doesn't have to be like that. You know, it doesn't have to be hard and difficult. Like, my life doesn't have to be like the people around me, you know? And those individuals that see something in you that other people don't, you know? I admire you, Ceci. And, you know, I've told you that plenty of times.
Thank you.
You know? Because it's moments and individuals like, you know, like you that you're like, you know what? I'm going to go against all odds. Whether I even believe in it or not sometimes.
Yep.
You know? But it's like, you've put me here for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. I know you have something for me. I don't know what it is. But I know you've given me a story. So with that, I'm going to share.
Exactly.
And I don't know what you're going to do with that story.
Nope.
You know? And I, you know, in the moments that I've been able to, like, tell people, you know, what I've gone through, I'm like, I feel like the things that you go through are never for you.
No.
They're always for someone else.
Absolutely. Because, you know, with me, I don't know, I felt like it, I don't know, and this is weird me saying all of this, but it could have been avoided.
Yeah.
I could have taken the other route. There were so many chances of me taking that other street and avoiding the situations that led me to get to my rock bottom. And I look back and I'm like, that wasn't me. Like, that wasn't how I was brought up.
Yeah.
That wasn't, you know, I remember...
Like, people would have never expected that from you.
People would have never expected that from me. Like, the year before, you know, I attempted to take my life, I was singing worship on the altar of the church in Miami. And I was involved in the youth ministry. I was, you know, prayer warrior, intercessor, you know, armor bearer, you know, it was very hardcore. And I remember I would come home senior year, junior year, you know, sophomore year and freshman year were a little crazy, but, you know, I remember the last few years I would just come home and, like, close the door, go in my room, blast Hillsong, the song All I Need Is You, Lord. All I need is you. And praying and reading the word. And then 2005, I move over here and, like, all hell breaks loose. In 2 years, all hell broke loose. 2 years. Yeah. It took 2 years for everything that I had gone through, everything that I had, you know, lived for, you know, the relationship that I had with God, it just went under. And I look back and I'm like, yo, that wasn't me. You know, and because of my story, and because I use Benevolence as my outlet to tell my story, and I invite people like you to come tell their story. Like, it's just like you said, my story it wasn't for me. It's for other people. And when I hear feedback from stories, or my story, or my testimony, and I hear that other people went through similar things, and they're like, oh my God, it's so powerful. Like, I would never, like, just today, my husband said something because he was able to tell his boss that I had a podcast, and then she spread the word to somebody else who was going through something similar. Like, it's not for us. Yeah. Our story's not for us. Yeah. You know, and it's crazy that you said that, because I'm thinking back, I'm like, no way. It's for other people. Yeah. You know?
Exactly.
But your story is incredible, Stephanie. Like, you know, the craziest thing is, I know Stephanie, and, you know, I see her all the time, every week, and you would never in a million years ever think that, you know, she had, you know, bad habits, bad crowds, gangs, you know, bullying even, you know, and pills, all of that, rebellion, you got suspended from school, you know, never in a million years.
I know.
You know?
It's not the first impression. Yeah. At least today. I look a little different. If you saw me back then, you'd probably be like,
okay, she's
she had a lot of time, or, you know, she's been through some stuff.
But, you know, your story is incredible, and like I said earlier in the beginning, I brought you here because it's a story that, even though it was 6 years ago, 7, you know, even 10 years ago, it's still very relevant to this day and age. I still come across so many people who, maybe I'm not hearing the bullying part, but who are having issues with the people that they're surrounding themselves, you know, with, and the bad habits, you know, and God has allowed me to reach out to them in a way. So I'm using Benevolence as a tool for them to hear your story, you know. Whoever's going to listen to this episode next week, you know, when it comes out, I know that they're going to be blown away by the story, you know, because it showed how, regardless of the decisions that you took in life, God's grace was just overflowing over your life. So I guess my last question for you, so we can conclude the episode, would be, you know, what can you tell, you know, our listeners who are going through just a tough time, whether it could be addiction, whether it's being with the wrong crowd, where they feel even maybe they failed everyone around them and they don't even know where to start. They don't even know how to begin. There's people even probably contemplating their lives, and they want to take their lives, and they don't even know why they're still here. You know, what was the moment in your life where you clicked and you were like, okay, Jesus, I have to follow him. That's the only way. Yeah. And how can you encourage the listener who is struggling to move forward, you know, believing?
Great question. I think it was the moment that I understood that I wasn't my mistakes, or that I wasn't the things that I did and the bad choices that I made. The things that my perspective on myself started changing. Because a lot of the times we try to figure out and solve the problem from the outside in. But until you look on the inside, the things that you've gone through, the things that you've experienced, the wounds that were made, is when true healing then begins to happen. And the thing is that the enemy, and I'm a believer as well, so I have to say it like this, but the enemy wants you to believe that you are your mistake. And that you are the shortcomings that you know, every time you fell and every time you failed someone, whether it was with the things that you did do or the things that you didn't do, the things that you saw that maybe you didn't intervene in, or the things that you fell through, you know, and made it happen. And so the enemy wants you to look at yourself, and he wants you to look at what you did, and that's just who you are. And so you live life out of mistakes. You live life looking at yourself like, I'm not good enough for anything because I can't make a right decision, because nobody can trust me, because I let people down, you know, I failed, you know, and different things like that. But when you get to know Jesus, he doesn't see you and your sin. He sees you separate from what you do. And he loves you for who you are.
Yep.
And for nothing else. You don't have to bring anything to the table. You just have to come and sit. And you're accepted just as you are. No questions, no criticism, no judgment. And when I found the love that I was looking for, because that's the fuel to all of our cycles.
Yes.
Is that we don't get the love that we're longing for. That's the fuel to every addiction, to every bad relationship. That's when you don't get that love factor, that's what we all want. And everything stems out of that.
Yeah.
And so when I found that, and I filled that piece of my life with the only one that can honestly fill it, because you can have all the boyfriends that you want. You can sleep with as many people as you want. You know, you can smoke it all you want. You can take as many pills as you want. But as soon as you're out of that room, or as soon as you're done with that high, you're going to feel exactly the same way that you did when you started.
Absolutely.
So I was like, that's not filling me. I'm in, you know, the lowest point of my life. I'm in my pit, you know. He's the only one that seems to accept me for who I am and not have any bad intentions for my life.
Yeah.
And when I started to separate the way that I saw myself and to actually get to know who this God is that people talk about, that people are, you know, is praised, you know, that people worship, that people have a relationship with, things then began to change in my life. And so my, you know, if I, you know, whatever, if I can have the moment to just share, it's like, you're not your mistakes. You're not what you didn't do. You're not what you did. And even though other people may single you out as such, that's not who you are.
Amen.
And as soon as you let go of that identity and that shame, because shame and guilt are two different things. Shame is you telling yourself that because of what I did, I am a bad person. And guilt is I did a bad thing. So you separate the two. As soon as you let go of shame, the shame of what's brought you there, and that constant cycle, was when then I found the freedom that I needed to. Did it come easy? No. Did I slip and fall during that process? Absolutely. I'm not going to sit here and say that it was perfect, because it wasn't.
Yeah.
But my life is not what I did.
Yep.
And then I had people that I then began to open to and, you know, express and share. Because vulnerability is the scariest thing.
Yes.
Especially when you've been taught that you have to have it all together. You know? Because if you don't do it, you know, you have no one else around you that you can look up to. Sometimes you feel like you just got to figure it out on your own.
Yep.
But sometimes God will bring you random people into your life. The people that you'd least expect. You know? Yep. Like you, with the people that you get to know.
Yep.
Or me with that random, you know, pastor that talked to me for the first time. You know, random people. And it's literally like that life jacket that they throw at you. And it's what we do with those moments.
Absolutely. That's good, girl. Oh my God, I get chills. Well, Stephanie, I don't even know what else to say. To be honest, your story is just, it's powerful, it's amazing, and it's going to bless. And I know it for a fact. I just can't wait to put this up so that next Monday y'all hear it and y'all can be blessed by it.
And again, I'm just going to take us like 10 seconds and like, just thank you for what you're doing. Just thank you for what you're doing. Because you don't know the ground that you're breaking. Yeah. And you don't know the lives that you're actually touching.
Amen. Thanks.
So thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, absolutely. Stephanie, thank you for telling us your story from top to bottom. I know everything now,
Yes.
and now, you know, it's just relieving, because, you know, you hear things and you're like, really, she did? Oh my God, I gotta, you know, but now we got the full story, and your story is definitely one that's gonna bless others, and I pray that it transfers. You know, we're a small little podcast, but I hope and pray that it reaches to the corners of this earth, and that every person that listens to episode 8 for season 3 gets blessed by this. And
Amen.
you know, I just thank you for joining me at the table today.
Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. And
Really
you're always welcome here, so let's see what happens. You know, for next season. But thank you for being real, transparent, telling us, you know, your story, and I just know that it's gonna bless others for sure. Okay.
Amen. That's what I believe.
Well, there you have it. And thank you all for tuning into Benevolence, where kindness matters and all are welcome to the table. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Benevolence Podcast or at I am Ceci Diaz to know a little bit more about me and Benevolence. Benevolence Podcast is available on iTunes, Google Play, and the Stitcher app. And finally, if there's a topic that you would like to discuss in the future, please do not hesitate to email me at benevolencepodcast@gmail.com with requests, petitions, or comments. I want to hear from you. And stay tuned for next Monday's episode of Benevolence. You don't want to miss it.